Highlights day one of SEC Media Days from Monday plus Twitter Tuesday, all coming up here on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, your first listen, your first watch each and every day. Appreciate you guys for hanging out with me here today. Of course, I am your host, Eric Kane. You can find the show, as always, at _Kaner on Twitter and at Locked On Vols. And a special shout out to LinkedIn Jobs. I want to personally thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidate that you need to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions do apply. So we got a lot to get into here today. Plus, we got Twitter Tuesday, little audio clips, everything that we need here from a recap of day one. And then, of course, getting you set for day two on a Tuesday here at SEC Media Days. We're going to have a conversation with Trey Wallace of Outkick, thecoverage.com, outkick.com. He's going to stop by and hang out with us here in segment two, talking a little Tennessee and everything else from SEC Media Days. So Vanderbilt, Alabama, Mississippi State, and South Carolina is on the docket tomorrow. Of course, that'll be nothing but Alabama Day because Nick Saban will rule the world. But nonetheless, some highlights here from day one of SEC Media Days. You know, Greg Sankey took to the podium earlier in the day and kind of came out. You know, we thought that there wouldn't be major breaking news, at least from Greg Sankey's part. We thought maybe there could be the scheduling announcement. Is it going to be a 9-game regular season conference schedule, an 8-game regular season conference schedule? But again, I didn't think that would come out this week because I don't think the SEC's done expanding. Of course, I understand the reports coming out that the SEC's good now. In fact, Greg Sankey said, hey, we're fine with 16 teams right now. I'm not going to say that we won't ever, continue to expand is what he pretty much said, but he said he's kind of fine with it. And yeah, I mean, I believe that. I think they're fine with it right now. They might not be actively trying to pursue the arms race right now, but in 2 to 3 months, in 6 to 8 months, in 1 to 2 years, that is not going to be the case. That will change because dollars and cents rule the world. So, Greg Sankey answered a lot of questions about conference expansion, about conference realignments, about the schedule. There's not going to be an announcement in terms of a conference schedule, throughout this week because, again, I don't think that they're fully set on nipping it in the bud right now in terms of conference realignment. So none of that breaking news. Name, image, and likeness. It was a big topic here in day number one. Of course, Greg Sankey said it's a continued push for NIL reform, from a higher level, trying to get some help right there, saying that essentially that this is not what name, image, likeness was supposed to be all about. But again, toothpaste is out of the tube there. It's not like you're going to stop it. You had 30 years to get prepared for this. So it just kind of is what it is in that regard. I thought Brian Kelly was kind of funny. He was the first coach that took to the stage, and he was, about 20 minutes after Greg Sankey says, hey, we need some more reform. We need some more reform on name, image, and likeness and all that. Brian Kelly gets up there and is asked a question about how it's said that LSU doesn't have the collectives to, kind of compete with those, there's other collectives around the SEC. And it's said, and he said, well, I don't know about that, but I mean, we're not getting outbid by anybody. And so I thought that was kind of funny how it went hand in hand in terms of Sankey saying that you need reform. And then Brian Kelly, when asked, it wasn't like it was unprompted, but when asked was saying, no, we are not getting outbid by anybody. So I thought that was kind of funny there. Brian Kelly also said, hey, I belong at LSU because I love football, I love family, and I love food. Quote, I should have always been in the South. He also made fun of himself in terms of the accent and kind of went over family again, saying that he has a Midwest, Northeastern, and now a Southern accent. So the family is going to get changed a little bit. So good for him on steering it to the wind in that regard. But on taking the LSU job, get this. Brian Kelly was asked by some reporter, and we talked about this leading up to this week, about how, if you watch all the coverage on the SEC network, if you listen to some of my takes and everything, you're going to get some reporter from some blog magazine or whatever that's going to ask just the stupidest question. And I'm not saying that this was the stupidest question, but this was a question that made me raise my eyebrows a little bit. Asked Brian Kelly straight up. He said, hey, did you want to coach at LSU because you couldn't handle losing to Alabama, getting drilled by Alabama in the playoffs so much at Notre Dame? And he was like, Well, no, not really. I just thought this was a good opportunity for me. So those were some of the highs in terms of what I kind of took from the coaches speaking in front of the podium at SEC Media Days. Lane Kiffin got up there, and of course, he's beating this drum about how you've got to have name, image, and likeness. It's not fair. You got to have reform. It's out there in the open. Again, if he was coaching at Southern, USC like he once was, he would not be having this conversation. If he was coaching at, Florida, if he was coaching at, somewhere else at Miami or maybe even Texas, he would not be having this conversation. That's just Lane Kiffin being Lane Kiffin. That's been Lane Kiffin this entire offseason. That's been Lane Kiffin, last football season until he gets out of Oxford, which he can't stand to be in Oxford right now, in my opinion. He wants out so bad. Until that happens, he is not going to be a fan of name, image, likeness. And then ultimately when he moves on, he's going to love NIL. And so I can't wait for that. Eli Drinkwitz gets up there and pretty much just says, hey, let's flip the page. A lot went wrong last year. The biggest reason why Missouri is going to be a better football team in 2022 than in 2021 is because the defense is going to be improved. And I talked to a couple of those defenders and kind of just switched schemes midway through last year. It was a shit show. It just kind of was what it was, right? They went from a 4-3 scheme, switched up to a 3-4, tried to have a Leo like Tennessee did a little bit. They had a big defensive tackle, slide back playing. It was like middle school football at times. And Steve Wilkes is your DC. What was going on there last year, right? I was just thinking about the Tennessee game in particular. But, Missouri lost a good quarterback, in my opinion, a decent quarterback, and Bazelak. Lost a really good All-American running back in Tyler Beatty. You lost some talent. And so Missouri, I don't have high expectations, kind of like I did for Missouri. And I don't know if you can count third place in the SEC East high expectations. That's kind of where I thought they would finish last year. And ultimately, that was not the case. So Missouri, it's all about flipping the page, starting over, flipping the page, and kind of starting anew, if you will. So nonetheless, those were kind of the highlights of of day one here on a Monday. Let's listen to my conversation here with Trey Wallace. Trey Wallace of Outkick. He's going to stop by. We talked day one. We talked SEC Media Days. Here's my conversation with Trey Wallace. Trey Wallace, Outkick.com, joining us here on Radio Row, SEC Media Days. It's day one. It's not over yet at the time of this recording, but Greg Sankey has taken to the podium. You've had Brian Kelly already taken to the podium. Biggest takeaway so far, very early going, and things you're looking forward to this week.
I think Greg Sankey being open when it comes to fielding calls from other schools. I think him also, in a sense of him saying, that he was caught off guard as well when USC and UCLA made that move, and he had to figure out what was true and what was wrong. And then also trying to figure out what the conference is going to look like and the alignment talk. So the summer vacation was gone, in his words, and I completely agree. I think when you look at Greg Sankey overall and what they're trying to do with the conference and what they're going to do, he said he's comfortable with where he's at right now.
Yeah.
And I agree, you're comfortable. You got Texas and
but
Oklahoma.
It's not staying at 16 for much longer,
no,
right?
It might not stay for 3 more months.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see, before the season starts, before these other contracts start going in with ESPN and ACC Network or Pac-12 and whatnot, you're going to see some more teams trying to jump into the boat. It doesn't matter what conference it is. So Greg Sankey's outlook is, okay, that we're sitting pretty right now. We'll field the right phone calls. They're in the high spot. So they can wait on a Clemson, if they want to call, a Miami, Virginia Tech, something along those lines, compared to other schools and conferences. And they're, compared to the Pac-12, who's trying to do backdoor deals with ESPN just to get their money raised.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel like, and I felt like this coming in that we weren't going to get that announcement. There's not going to be a scheduling announcement this week.
No, I don't think we get any kind of scheduling announcement. I don't think we get – they're not voting on anything. So I don't think – we're not going to get anything in regards to a 9-game, announcement or anything along those lines.
Because the hope was when they left Destin that this could be finalized, maybe announced this week. But obviously a lot's have changed since then. So, my thing is, why would you announce what your plans are 5 months down the road? You could be adding another team, right?
Well, that's the biggest thing about this is that if you think that you're going to add other teams, why are you going to go ahead and announce something that's going to impact? I did find one thing very interesting that, Texas and Oklahoma, and I was down at Destin for the SEC spring meetings, and they didn't have a representative down there. But the fact that Greg Sankey talked about how involved they are being on Zooms, being on conference calls, that they are with the rest of the SEC, because they're looking towards the future. I think that's big, that they're already talking now. So, okay, so Oklahoma and Texas, they do have a presence now. Now, it might not be in the conference, but they do have at least a say of what's going on.
And then, of course, didn't go down to the spring meetings. It might be too much of a distraction, but are, on those calls on Zoom. As Greg Sankey said, everybody's good at Zoom now, so that's a good thing.
Right.
So no scheduling announcements.
Yeah.
Likely, there'll still be some talk about conference realignment, expansion, everything, but there's going to be a lot of name, image, and likeness this week, isn't there?
That's what it's going to be like. I think it's going to start with Lane, and I think it's going to end, maybe with Jimbo or Harsin or something along those lines. The biggest thing to me is this week, does a coach from a university come out and say, we back this alignment, or collective?
Yeah.
Do we
That's
back?
what I want to know.
Right. Okay. This NIL process is the one we're working with now. Mm-hmm. Because what we're seeing is there's Mark Stoops complaining about it the other day. Billy Napier's already appeared at one or two events with the collective, the Gator Collective. Does Josh Heupel come out and say anything?
The Auburn AD publicly endorsed it.
Right.
Yeah.
You got Alan Green that comes out and they do a whole video about publicly endorsing a NIL proponent group. I'm curious to see what other coaches do that because you've got the stage now. Yeah. If you want to blow it up, if you want to make that NIL collective massive, you do it here because you got so many networks to do it with. That's what's going to stand out to me because my biggest thing here, because you can't have these coaches sitting here and complaining about this and about NIL when they're not ready to take a chance on, let's put it out there and let's see if we can gain some traction on it.
It's adapt or die, and what type of platform, what better platform than this out here if you want to get your message out. So I'm curious
it beats
to
local
see.
media.
It does, because this is a national stage. This is broadcast on the SEC Network.
Right. It's different between if we were sitting there in Knoxville, we were talking to Josh Heupel, and Josh Heupel said, okay, well, I'm backing Spire or whatnot. Okay, there's a big difference between doing it on that stage outside right there compared to doing it in front of us at the local media gathering on the 31st. I'm just saying that I think that if you want to take a risk and you want to take chances, do it now and not wait.
What else are you looking forward to this week? Of course, we're about midway through Monday at the time of this recording. It's going to be Nick Saban Day, Alabama Day, first thing on Tuesday. As you mentioned, you'll have Josh Heupel, you'll have Brian Harsin, you'll have Jimbo Fisher coming up at the rear on Thursday. And then Georgia and some others, Florida, on Wednesday.
I'll see what Billy Napier's like
in
the SEC. We've seen him as an assistant. But in the SEC, we saw that with Brian Kelly a little bit ago. I thought he handled himself really well for not being – a lot of people don't remember this and don't realize this, and it takes a lot too. Brian Kelly hadn't been to a media day since 2009. Yep. Mm-hmm. So when you break that down and you look at everything else that's going on, you look at the teams that are here and the coaches, I'd like to see what Napier does. I want to see if Harsin gets out of here alive without having to talk about, this is what my future is going to look like in 2023.
At least this isn't happening in January.
Right.
When he was about, it was very well, is he going to have a job at the end of the week?
Well, that's the biggest thing, too. And if you remember last year, the crazy part about SEC Media Days, you remember last year is that Ross Bjork came into town, Texas A&M's AD. And the only reason he came to Birmingham was because Texas and Oklahoma had just pretty much announced they were joining. So I don't think we see any craziness like that this week. I think a lot of it's going to stick to conference realignment, what the team looks like, and NIL. And I think those are the three key things that are going on. Because right now, Billy Napier, Josh Heupel, whatnot, they honestly don't care about Oklahoma and Texas joining in 3 years.
Yeah.
They're worried about getting these boys ready to start fall camp.
They got a lot more pressing matters coming up here. Camp for Tennessee, it's in less than 2 weeks. All right, last couple of things, man. Tennessee, a lot. We're going to learn a lot about that team as they enter fall camp. A lot about the secondary, a lot about the other offensive tackle. But from the outside looking in, 2022 season, what do you like about Tennessee?
I like them. Obviously, quarterback. That's easy.
Yep.
Running back. I like the depth that they have.
Yeah, they got a lot of options.
I do. I think Justin Williams could be somebody that could, 5-6 yards per carry type of guy. I think, Jalen Wright is another one I like. Jabari Small, biggest thing to me is stay healthy. Mm-hmm. Stay healthy with your shoulder and whatnot. I think overall defensive line is going to be interesting for Tennessee this year. They do have the guys there to do it. It's all about can they get enough production out of it. But overall, I think this is an 8-win team. I think this could be a 9-win team because Tennessee's offense – wide receiving core, the way that they are right now, get the Brew McCoy stuff handled, get it all done. They'll be ready for fall camp. I think when you look at it, this is the type of offense that can go out, win you 8 games, and then go out and upset a team. Maybe get you to 9 during the regular season. You don't want to take that step back this year. And I think Tennessee, I do think they have the talent. I think the secondary, Trayvon, Tank, okay, let's see what the younger guys got. Christian Charles, let's see if he can take the next step this year.
Can some of those younger guys push those veterans?
That's right.
Not like they were complacent, but like, if they had any type of competition, they would have played every snap last year. Let's be real.
No, absolutely. So it's all about, can these guys that were freshmen or sophomores take that next step and move forward? And if they can, okay, then Tennessee has a chance to be really successful when it comes to a depth position. Because let's not forget this. Tennessee still got kind of that same linebacker core.
Yeah.
So you got to work around Juwan Mitchell, Jeremy Banks, Aaron Beasley. At least the guys know the system.
Yep.
You're still going to athletically have to work around that a little bit. So maybe you can build a little depth.
Big week ahead for the SEC Media Days, and, of course, we'll cover it all right here at the Sports Animal. And, Trey, you will have loads of stuff over at Outkick.com, right?
Yeah, I look forward to it. Outkick.com. We'll have interviews. We'll have all the good stuff that's going on here at Media Days and a lot of fun things, too. So just happy to be here, brother.
Trey Wallace, Outkick.com. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Good stuff there from Trey Wallace all the time. Go ahead and find him on Twitter at Trey Outkick and follow his work there. Outkick's got a booth up here on Radio Row as well, doing some good work. So that's Trey Wallace, a friend of the show. All right, when we come back, we get into some of your Twitter Tuesday questions and comments. But first, as the sun comes out and small businesses are getting back into business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. Listen, we've all gone on LinkedIn Jobs and we've been trying to find a job for ourselves, but now you're an adult. Now you might be a small business owner. You need to hire some help and you need someone that you can trust. There's no better place that has been doing it for more people. Try 810 million people that have used that professional network. That's at LinkedIn Jobs. So go there, make your profile if you're a small business owner, add your job into the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it look easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every single week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. And go ahead and continue to subscribe and follow the show on YouTube. Really, really do appreciate it. We are soaring past 2,000 subscribers. We want to get to 3,000 before football season. That would be great. All right, so Twitter Tuesday. Let's go ahead and get into your questions and your comments here on the Mailbag Show. We'll start with Rolene. Question for Twitter Tuesday. What impact do you think D. Williams could have on this upcoming season? Good question, man. He got all the reps he could possibly handle. That was in spring practice because, quite frankly, everybody was hurt, right? So it was him and a walk-on, really, that was kind of repping with the first team. I think he was just trying to get used to everything. I think he was just trying to get his surroundings, learn the playbook and all that. I have him kind of down on the depth chart, maybe third string entering camp. That can always change. But he's a skilled returner. That's where I think he can make the most impact on this team. One of the best junior college returners in the entire country last year. Throughout his JUCO career, he returned 7 kicks for touchdowns, whether that be kickoffs or punts as well. So that's where I think he might have the most impact to begin with before he kind of figures it out in the defensive backfield. All right, let's go to Ray. Ray has a bit of a story for us, and I said that I wanted to read this on the episode. So this is really, really cool. He said, originally from Nashville, I live outside of Atlanta, so Locked On Vols is one of my Tennessee outlets to get my Vols fix every single day down here in Dog Country. I just had to, I wanted to share this cool experience I had. I was listening to the podcast at work one day, and I heard you say that the new commit named Jeremiah T-Lander was at Gainesville High School. I happened to be working on the Gainesville High School field house because we were building a new addition to the school. Shortly after, one of the coaches came out to do the ice baths with the players. I congratulated the coach on having a new SEC commit. He sensed the Vols fan in me and actually had the opportunity to meet Jeremiah. Dude, that is awesome, Ray. I think Jeremiah T-Lander is going to be a really, really good player. He's a little undervalued right now. Of course, linebackers are kind of undervalued to begin with overall, but nonetheless, I think this is a guy, Jeremiah T-Lander, that will surprise some people. So Ray, great stuff, man. Really appreciate you for sharing that. Thank you so much for supporting the show all the way down there, as you would say, in dog country. Let's go to K. Wayne, 1800. Going into this season, which team on Tennessee's schedule presents the greatest unknowns? To me, it has to be Florida or LSU. It wouldn't surprise me to see those teams succeed this year. It wouldn't surprise me to see them struggle. They have a lot of questions, and therefore it makes it hard to predict those games. What are your thoughts? Well, that's a good point. Like, we know exactly who Kentucky is, okay? We know Kentucky is its best offensive weapon from last year, but we know Kentucky's bringing back the leading rusher in the SEC, a very talented quarterback, not number one overall according to CBS, but a very talented quarterback. But we know the MO. We know what Kentucky is. We know who Kentucky has. There's a lot of new faces for Florida. There's a whole lot of new faces for LSU. Who's going to start quarterback for LSU? Is it going to be Jay Daniels? Is it going to be, Gutsmeyer? Is it going to be Miles Brennan? Who's it going to be? But we know that LSU can get out of the passer, and LSU has an all-American wide receiver in Keyshawn Boutte, who, by the way, is not at SEC Media Days. Who knows why, right? So I kind of get what you're saying there. I still feel like Tennessee is further along, and then they're starting over and, with first-year head coaches and new schemes. Think about this. Couple that with Tennessee's now in year number 2. Tennessee has a fast-paced offense that kind of catches people off guard, kind of to begin with. So that's something they have going for them as well. Tennessee has not had luck against Florida at all. 2016, it was a long time ago, right? That's the last time Tennessee beat Florida. And before that, it was 2000? Gosh, was it 2003? It's been a one-sided rivalry. And LSU, anytime you play LSU on the road, that's tough. That's actually one of the losses I have for Tennessee this year, kind of heading into the season. So, we'll see. A lot of unknowns about those teams. I hear what you're saying, but, they do have talent. They do have athletes. Florida does have Anthony Richardson, who I believe will be a draft pick next year, probably, potentially, day 2, maybe day 1 if he has a good year. So we'll have to see exactly what happens. But I like where Tennessee is in terms of, what you're getting in quarterback play, what you're getting in the offense overall. And, gosh, if you could just make a couple of stops, force a couple of turnovers, who knows what can actually happen. So, all right, we'll go to the Twitter sphere. And we'll go to our Locked On Kentucky host, Lance Daw, who, by the way, he is sitting right over here at a shot right now. And so he's been watching the whole show. He's heard me mess up like a million times. True or false? Hendon Hooker will be first team all SEC this season. Good question. False. I mean, you got the reigning Heisman Trophy winning quarterback coming back, right? I mean, you got the number 1 overall pick and Will Levis over there in Kentucky. Nah, I'll say false. I mean, we'll see. Byron Young is in. Bryce Young. There's a Byron Young that plays for Tennessee and for Alabama. Bryce Young is an incredible athlete, and I'm not going to bet against the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Good question, though. Appreciate it. All right, we'll continue to move on here, and we will go to Whit Terry. Although it's media days this week, I'd like to know what's going to happen with the quarterback room next year. With Hooker leaving after this season and Nico coming in, I believe next year's QB battle will be Nico, Milton, and Taven Jackson. I just wonder that if they've already told Nico that it's going to be his or not, or the starter, or when he comes in next year, if Taven Jackson or Joe Milton will transfer or not. Well, that's the era we live in college football, right? I mean, Joe Milton by that time, keep in mind, Joe Milton will be a 6-year senior by that time, right? He's already started at 2 Power 5 conferences, two Power 5 football teams. Taven Jackson's had a really good spring, was really, really well thought of as well, coming in. He was the first quarterback that Heupel ever recruited to Tennessee. But, I mean, you've got that investment, literally, in Nico Iamaleava. I don't know if they've promised him the starting job. I hope not, because if you're not ready, you're not ready. This does not need to be the NFL. I know amateurism is kind of going out the window right now, but it doesn't need to be the NFL. I sincerely doubt that they promised Nico anything, but you do have that investment and you do have that talent, so he's going to play. Might not be game 1, might not be game 2, and we are in the era of you are going to lose quarterbacks. I've been told this as well, but I thought this for a long time. Harrison Bailey was quote unquote the second string guy last year because Heupel didn't want to lose a guy in the QB room, and ultimately when he left, Tennessee was down to 2 scholarship quarterbacks. It just wasn't a good spot. So we'll see what happens. I think Joe Milton could stay around if he wants to stay around. Gosh, he might have his doctorate by then, and would be in a good spot to start next season until Nico's ready. Hopefully Taven Jackson won't leave, but obviously you can never rule that out in this era. of college football. All right, we're gonna get to one more because we gotta continue to move on. This is from BFL_UT. The football staff did not use Deep Beckwith, and he ended up transferring. With Cameron Seldon being similar in size, how would they be able to use him differently? What makes you think they could be successful when they didn't with Beckwith? All right, well, first of all, Deep Beckwith was recruited by previous staff. That's one thing. It doesn't mean that Heupel and staff didn't like him or didn't think that they could find some use for him somewhere, but just point remains, he was recruited by Jeremy Pruitt's staff. Cam Seldon is a wide receiver and a running back. Deep Beckwith is slower. Deep Beckwith runs about probably about a 4.5, maybe a 4.6. Cam Seldon can fly. Low 4.4, and he's bigger. He weighs 220 pounds. So I think he's shiftier. I think he's quicker, and I think he's a better athlete. So that answers one, and it's a different coaching staff. So we'll have to see. Bull Creek stump jumper Balazan say good question. Also, what about Cayman Marley and Weidman, the wide receiver? Well, Weidman just didn't pan out here. He was a wide receiver all the way. Cayman Marley, I mean, he missed spring. He missed pretty much all of fall camp because he had a broken hand, and then he was just buried on the depth chart. I think he was promised that he would get reps at wide receiver, and that's why he was repping a wide receiver in camp when he was finally there, when he should have been playing safety the entire time or linebacker. I just think that a lot of that had to do, to answer all this in a round scope of a question, I think a lot of this had to do with the previous coaching staff, to be completely honest. So we'll see what happens, see if they don't make a habit out of it. But I do believe that the staff loves them some Cam Seldon, and they made him an absolute priority to get him here in this class. All right, we're going to come back, take a look at his starter spotlight, Warren Burrell, quickly before we end a show. But BetOnline.net, your number one source for all your sports betting needs, sports information. Hey, you know what was last night? The Major League Baseball Home Run Derby. You know what's coming up? The Major League Baseball All-Star Game. 7 Atlanta Braves on the All-Star team. You know my Braves fandom. Hey, you can get in on that action at BetOnline.net right now and put some coin in your pocket. Baseball season's at the break point, but you have tons of stuff you can bet on. Celebrity softball as well. Plus, you've got some other sports. You just had a major wrap-up in the rearview mirror. You got UFC, you got boxing, you got all the fighting sports going on just about every single weekend. And you can find all that action at BetOnline.net. You got esports, you got reality television. They have literally more than just sports. They've got everything you can possibly imagine, plus podcasts, sports news, podcasts, all that type of stuff as well at BetOnline.net. So head on over to the websites. Use your mobile device, learn about all the latest trends and all the action. BetOnline.net. It is where the game starts. Just a couple minutes left here on this Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. We are here on Radio Row, SEC Football Media Days, getting to meet and hang out with a lot of guys, a part of the network. We got a whole lot of SEC hosts here today, so for this week, rather. And it's really cool meeting up with those guys, and I'm taking their time when they want to get in here and podcast, so I'm going to try to hurry up here. But we got one more segment left. Starter Spotlight. We conclude our mini-series here in the summer, and it's a good time to do it because, hell, we got camp coming up in less than 2 weeks. We've got a final prospect camp coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend. And then it's the start of football season. So we got SEC Media Days to carry us all the way to the end of this week. One more week, and then, hey, it is football time, practice football time in Tennessee. So final starter spotlight. Been a nice little series. And let's look over at the other cornerback position. And I'm going to go with it. His name is Warren Burrell. I know. All you guys are saying, no, there's no way. There's no way that guy can ever play football again. Did you watch the Music City Bowl? Did you watch South Alabama game? Did you watch, the Ole Miss game towards the end of the year and some of those other games towards the end of the year? Yeah, it's my job. I got to watch them. I actually rewatch. I've watched every Tennessee game more than you. That's bad, right? Because there's been some bad Tennessee football at times. Not really last year with Heupel. There's some bad defense at times, but Warren Burrell, I just think it's a mental thing right now. I truly do. Anybody a big fan of the movie The Replacements? It is one of my favorite movies of all time. I made my fiance watch it with me a couple weeks ago, and I absolutely love the movie The Replacements. Shane Falco, my favorite fictional athlete of all time. There's a quote in that movie about quicksand. One thing goes wrong, and then another, and then another, and then another, and then ultimately you can't breathe. You can't get out of it. You're falling down. It's like quicksand. And that's what Warren Burrell was towards the end of the season. They started singling out Alontae Taylor and putting him on an island over there because they didn't throw it to him much. And they just started picking apart Warren Burrell. And they would get a completion on him, and then another, and then another. Then one would go for 6, and then he would trip, and then he would fall. And then ultimately it got so bad towards the end of the Music City Bowl that you just couldn't play him anymore. Theo Jackson. Now, keep in mind, Tennessee was down like 4 corners as well, but Theo Jackson had to go over there and play cornerback towards the end of the Music City Bowl. It was that bad. And so all that to say, I still believe that Warren Burrell will start game 1. I don't know if he'll start game 2, but I believe Warren Burrell will start game 1 at cornerback because you know exactly what you have in him. Willie Martinez, Tim Banks, they said it throughout the spring. You know exactly what you have in that guy. It's a guy that's been pretty much a 3-year starter. He's played a ton of football for you, and it's not like he's been all SEC, but he's been much better than the guy that you saw at the end of last year. So I'm intrigued to see how he bounces back. We'll look quickly at the Pro Football Focus grade for Warren Burrell last season if my computer here wants to decide to load. But, I mean, it wasn't great. The season average was not great. We know the grading scale. If you're below a 59, you are considered a replaceable player. And Warren Burrell, well, it was not good. He had a 61.1% per Pro Football Focus, just above the threshold of a replaceable football player. In 2020, he had a 61.4%, 54.7% as a true freshman. But he's played a whole lot of snaps, 349 snaps last season. And again, he was a spot starter his first 2 years on the Hill. A lot of bad games for him, but ultimately, I've seen individual grades per Pro Football Focus, especially on this side of the defense. I've seen a lot of worse grades than I'm seeing about Warren Burrell right now. Sure, they're not great. He had a really, really good game against Tennessee Tech earlier this season. I know it's Tennessee Tech. Had a pretty solid game against Kentucky. Had a pretty solid game against Ole Miss. But ultimately, he's just got to get over it. And he's got the ability to do so. I just think that he needs to get back on the field and do a couple things right. Maybe get a turnover, force a turnover, get an interception, and kind of get some confidence rolling back in him. Because ultimately, that is not the same guy that we've seen throughout his college career. So I'll say Warren Burrell because he's smart. He's good enough to play it. He's played it for 3 years, and he's your most experienced cornerback. We'll see if some other guys can push him, like D. Williams, maybe Christian Charles, maybe some of these other guys. But I think at least game 1, you'll see Kamal Haddon on one side, and you will see Warren Burrell on the other. That'll do it here for a starter spotlight series. We'll continue to look, maybe do a little opponent preview as the week goes on, but we got tons and tons of SEC media days left to get into throughout the rest of the week. Real quick, again, on a Tuesday, it will be Alabama Day. Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide will kick things off in the morning. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and South Carolina. That is your lineup for Tuesday here at SEC Media Days. For Eric Kane, I really, really do appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with me here today on Locked On Vols, making it your first listen, your first watch. Go ahead and subscribe, rate, review, throw me a heart, thumbs up on YouTube, anything to help those algorithms. Give Chris Gordy a follow and subscribe to Locked On SEC. We're at SEC Media Days. I'm going to be bringing you some one-on-ones like I did with Trey throughout the rest of the week. Some awesome people. Man, he's getting tons of people as well. So give him a follow. Locked On SEC, 30 minutes or less, taking you around the SEC every single day. All right, from Radio Row at SEC Football Media Days, Day 1 complete. We head on then to Day 2 on a Tuesday. Tennessee will come up on a Thursday. Guys, enjoy the rest of your night, and we will talk to you tomorrow.